Well, I have to say, after listening to these young people, if ever I feel a little bit down at heart about how we're leaving the world, listening to the passion and the wisdom and the knowledge that the next generations are bringing just brings a huge smile to my face. And I'm really honored to be here with the other speakers. I'm going to take us on a bit of a journey now. You know, we've been to the Boreal, we've talked about protecting bears, we've been to the Amazon, we've been in the living forest, and I'm going to take us to our own backyard. And because there's a lot that we can appreciate in our own backyard, and I have to say, it's one of my passions that we as urban dwellers don't think that the environment is out there, that we understand that we are living in the environment. So here's our own backyard. We are actually lucky people to live in Toronto, a city in a forest. And we have over 16,000 trees per square kilometer in the Greater Toronto Area, and that's about 4 trees per person. And those trees are more than scenery to us. Urban forests and green space are important ecosystems that improve environmental quality, increase biodiversity, and contribute to our human health and well-being. But with the population of the Greater Toronto Area being now over 6 million and expected to grow to over 9 million by 2040, urban forests are going to be no longer a nice-to-have. They're going to be a must-have, essential to the well-being of our city and essential to making Toronto one of those destination cities that attract business and talented people. So let's take a look at our forests in our own backyard. They take many forms, from our ravines and our parks to our street trees, to little spaces like this that uplift you every time you walk by them, and of course to our own gardens. We need and expect our urban green spaces to have multiple uses. We want to walk in the park, we want to take our dogs and our kids, we want to play in the park, we want to grow things in the park, and it can be challenging to try to fit all those things together. But the facts are that we have to accommodate all of these needs. And of course, when we're trying to make decisions in the city, we're always faced with what has more value. So I thought an interesting thing to do, and something that luckily we at the bank are able to do, is to set our economists onto trying to tell us in dollars and cents what are the value of our urban forests. And I think you'll be surprised at some of what they came up with. So, bear with me, I'm going to give some numbers here, but I am a banker. In Toronto, in the city of Toronto, we have 10.2 million trees, over 116 species. The majority of those, over 6 million of them, are within our parks, are on private property. So we are the major keeper of the urban forest with our own gardens. About 3.5 million are in the parks and ravines, and the rest, almost 1 million, are trees that line our city streets. From a pure commodity cost, that is, if you were to cut the trees down and use them as some sort of resource, lumber, or make them into something, they have a replacement value of $7 billion. That's about $700 per tree. And that's just literally the physical part of the tree. But on top of this, our trees provide about $80 million each and every year of environmental benefit. What are those benefits? Stormwater control. Anybody knows who's cut down a big tree in their garden and suddenly sees their lawn turn into a puddle, how much water trees take up, becoming more and more important as we have these big flood events that are getting more and more frequent. On top of that, our urban forests remove about 19,000 tons of air pollution from the atmosphere each and every year. That's equivalent to the amount of pollution from 1 million cars or from 100,000 houses. And they cool. They provide a cooling effect. A healthy young tree is equivalent to 10 room-sized air conditioners operating 20 hours a day. That's what happens in the summer. It saves the City of Toronto about $6.5 million per year on our energy bill. And if you take all that apart, the environmental benefits of our trees save every family over $40 a year. Of course, the bigger the tree, the greater the value. Large trees absorb up to 36 times more air pollutants and store almost 300 times more carbon than smaller trees. So our old trees have many, many values. And let's not forget something that all of us Torontonians care a lot about: property value. The environmental benefits of trees or proximities to a park cannot be measured on an average basis, but everybody knows that if you live next to a park or have a wonderful old tree on your property, it's going to increase the property value. So those are some of the benefits. Now, sure, we all know that to maintain our forests and our urban parks, it costs some money. But for every dollar of maintenance, our urban forest returns over $3 worth of benefit to the community. Now, this past winter, we lost almost 20% of our urban tree canopy to the ice storm. And I'm sure that could be my street. I'm sure many of us live on a street that looked like this. It's going to take many years for the damage to heal, but based on what we know and what we know about the value, it's going to be more than worth it to put that effort back into recreating these canopies. And all of us have a role to play in increasing the natural capital of our urban forests. Our municipal governments and conservation authorities are the major keepers for the public good of our public spaces. And did you know that the City of Toronto is actually one of the few cities in North America to have an urban forestry strategy? And it includes a goal to increase the city's tree canopy by 40%. As well, there are easily more than 20 community organizations that are actively involved in urban forestry and urban green space in Toronto. Certainly, the corporate sector has a role to play, and that's why we've initiated our TD Forest program, of which a key component is growing and enhancing urban forests. Through our Green Streets program, we supported 34 municipalities last year planting street trees. And our employees planted over 50,000 trees last year and have done for the last 3 years. We also provided more than $7 million in direct support to community organizations aimed at enhancing biodiversity and providing education. Growing and enhancing our urban forests for the future is not going to be easy. We're going to have to stand up for our forests, and we're going to have to talk about the value of the forest in the face of the urban development that we're encountering in the city. Earlier this month, we hosted an urban forestry forum, and here are some of the more than 25 groups that attended. We're going to have to work together, and we're going to have to come up with a common vision of what we want our future urban forests to look like in the GTA. The challenges of our growing urban populations and increasing density of our housing means that we're not only going to have to think and work together, but we're also going to have to think out of the box. It's really complicated to meet the needs of growing and prosperous cities, but one thing is clear. Investment in our urban forests and green space is good for our environment, it's good for our health, it's good for our economy, gesundheit, and it's essential for future generations. Thanks.